following announcement has been paid for by the
Wealth Management Advisory Club. Hey everybody, it's the president of the Wealth Management Advisory Club, Jack Mitchell here. Welcome back to another exciting WMA Club meeting. Before we send you guys off, this awesome meeting guys are going to watch today. A couple announcements on our end as always. So before we begin, I just want to throw this out there. Yes, my throat is red. No, I don't have an infection, but again, I just have seasonal allergies. So, you know, pollen's out there, spring season. That's why I'm always indoors in the spring. Not really out there because, I usually get I get itchy skin, itchy eyes, runny noses. For anyone who relates to that, pat yourself on the back for that. That's why I'm not wearing my contacts, wearing my glasses. So I'm going to throw that out there. All right, so we got a lot. Actually, we have a couple things to go over today. So the first off, we have a lot of exciting events and meetings this week for WMA Club. And let's just pull it up, shall we? All right. So obviously today, you guys are going to watch the Bemused meeting that we had today. Then Thursday, there's going to be two events. The first one is going to be our Grant Thornton event. I'll actually get to that in a second. Our Grant Thornton meeting with Mark Menard. And then at 7:30 p.m. in the Dreyfus Theater will be our collaboration event or bonus event with the FDU Theaters program, FDU SGA, Florida SGA to be exact, for their Club Night 2. Into the Woods play. Guys, go and support the FDU Theaters Artist Program. They have made an awesome play for you guys to watch. And again, please use promo code FDU Clubs, all caps, get 10% off your ticket. And just as a disclaimer, actually, I'll get to that in a second. And then on Friday, we'll have 2023 Devil's World. That'll be at 1 to 5 p.m. On the library lawn on the Florida campus metro. If you guys want to come, please do. Now, for our members for Thursday, we are going to be doing two special things, which again, that's why I actually paused there for a second. So, if you come to the meeting in person and you ask a question in person, you will win. And I have this here. And I have this here. I have this here. You'll be able to receive a free Grant Thornton Cup. So you're trying to be like Vanna White here, so. But that's not all. No. If you just show up in person on the Florum and or Metro campus, you will be able to enter into a raffle to win a free Grant Thornton t-shirt. Yes, a free Grant Thornton t-shirt. But the only rule is that you have to show up to the meeting in person on the Florum and or the Metro campus. Metro campus, Dickinson Hall, 1104. Florida campus, Mansion Room 12. Anyone who's on Zoom, unfortunately, not able to win any of these prizes because you have to be in person. A little bit of way entice you guys to come in person. So again, please come to the meeting Thursday in the Mansion Room 12, Dickinson Hall, 1104. Zoom and WMA Club socials as well. So again, please do that for Thursday's meeting. All right, enough of that, and I do apologize there. Hold on. So push that out of the way. All right, so the two things left. Yes, it is time to go over our sponsors. Yes, and this time we have not one, but two sponsors, like I mentioned on last meeting. So the first sponsor we have here today, we feature is, actually, let me phrase that. This meeting, first off, is sponsored by good friends over at Duolingo. Are you looking to learn a new language, or maybe you want to brush up on your language skills? Look no further than Duolingo, the world's most popular language learning platform. With Duolingo, you can learn over 40 different languages, including Spanish, French, German, Japanese, and many, many more. Whether you're a complete beginner or an advanced learner, Duolingo has a course that's right for you. And here's the best part about it. It's completely free to use. With just a few minutes a day, you can learn a new language at your own pace. And with fun, interactive lessons and gamification features, learning a new language has never been more enjoyable. Duolingo's unique approach to language learning combines reading, writing, speaking, and listening, so you can truly immerse yourself into the language. Plus, with its advanced algorithm, Duolingo can adapt to your learning style and provide personalized feedback to help you progress faster. And with Duolingo's mobile app on iOS and Android, you'll be able to learn on the go, anywhere, anytime, whether you're on the bus, waiting in line, waiting for your class to start. Please do not do it while you're in class, because again, we do not want to get, professors emailing us saying, hey, they're doing this during class, which we do not advise you to do that. Or you're at home and you have nothing else to do. You can make progress in your language learning journey. So why wait? Join the millions of learners around the world who have already discovered the fun and effective way to learn a new language with Duolingo. Download the app today and start your language learning journey. So, you guys are the drill already. If you go to our link tree down below, or you go to our website at FDUWealthManagementAdvisoryClub.com, not the one FDU Silver made, because again, it has inaccurate information. You go there, click the sponsors page, click the link. You'll be able to receive a 1-week free trial to Super Duolingo. Yes, their premium service. Thanks to our friends over at Duolingo. So that is the first sponsor for today's meeting. Our second sponsor of today's meeting is actually, I think it's a newer sponsor I think we have. Oh, no, I was wrong. Not. I apologize. This next sponsor is sponsored by good friends over at Cash App, the easy way to spend, send, and invest your money. With Cash App, you conveniently manage your finances from the comfort of your own phone. Are you tired of waiting in long lines at the bank or dealing with complex financial software? Cash App has got you covered. Their app is designed to be simple and user-friendly, making it easy for anyone to manage their finances. With Cash App, you can send your money to friends and family instantly without any additional fees. Plus, you can even invest your money into stocks or Bitcoin right from the app. And I'm not joking, right from the app. Oh, I should not be getting that. I don't want to get copyrighted for this meeting. Their investment options are designed to be accessible for everyone, whether you're an experienced investor or just starting out. But that's not all. No. It also offers a range of other features, such as the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin, cashback rewards on purchases, and even a customizable Cash App card that you can use to make your purchase anywhere that accepts Visa. And if you're wondering what that looks like, I'm able to show you guys my Cash App card, but I'm not going to show you guys the back of it because, again, that would be bad. But here's my custom Cash App card. Look at that. See, customizable. And this actually is a glow-in-the-dark one. They have a white and a black one, obviously. So why wait? Download Cash App today and start taking control of your finances. With their easy-to-use app, you'll never have to worry about complicated financial tasks ever again. Whether you're sending money to a friend, investing in the stock market, or just looking to make everyday purchases, Cash App has everything you need to manage your money with ease. So, again, if you go to our link tree or go to our website and click our sponsors page and click the link where it says Cash App, obviously, and if you click on the link, you will be able to get $5 for free. $5 for free when you sign up. Thanks to our friends here at WMA Club and Cash App. Again, I'd like to thank Cash App and Duolingo for being today's sponsors of today's meeting. One last thing I will do, and I will throw this out there. I've never done this before, but we will do it for this meeting. Shout out to the Bemused YouTube channel. Obviously, guys, they are today's speakers. So, guys, please blow up their social media profiles. Please go subscribe, like, and comment on all their videos on their YouTube channel. And, yeah, so with that being said, if you guys are ready, I know I most certainly am ready to go. And I think this will be a fun meeting for you guys to watch. Let's get you guys in the meeting.
And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Wealth Management Advisory Club meeting. Today, we have the Bemused featuring Akieva M. Ellis, CFP certified, to come and speak to us today. Just going to read a little bit about her, and then I'm going to let her pass it off to her for the rest of our meeting. So, as a highly regarded CFP, which for any of our members who have actually remembered that term before, certified financial planner, Akeiva has consistently demonstrated her commitment to empowering individuals with the knowledge and skills they need to make informed financial decisions and achieve their financial goals. With over a decade of experience in the financial services industry, Akeiva has earned a reputation as an expert in wealth management, retirement planning, and financial literacy. Through her dedication to her clients, she has helped countless people navigate the complexities of personal finance, providing guidance on everything from budgeting and investing to tax planning and even to risk management. In addition to her successful career as a financial planner, Akeiva is also an accomplished author and speaker. Her best-selling book, Financial Freedom Blueprint, has served as a valuable resource for those looking to take control of their financial future. Moreover, Akeiva is a sought-after speaker at the conferences, workshops, and seminars, where she shares her insights and expertise on personal finance and wealth management. Akeiva's passion for financial education extends beyond her professional pursuits. She's a proud volunteer at various nonprofit organizations where she contributes her time and expertise to the underprivileged communities, access financial resources, education. Today, we are fortunate enough to have Akieva M. Ellis with us. So guys, I know this is going to probably be, again, like we happened on, I believe, last Thursday. We had an open forum. It's basically be like that. So guys, just please ask a lot of questions, have a lot of fun with this meeting. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to you, Akieva, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Jack. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I know I can't see all of your faces, but hopefully you can see and hear me clearly. And I'm super excited to be here with you all and kind of have, again, this open forum, kind of informal chat about my experiences in the industry. I know you've had lots of great speakers already over the course of the semester. So I'm here to just kind of add an additional voice and be a resource to you all in terms of what it is that you might want to know when it comes to the whole field of wealth management and my personal experiences in it. So let me just give a brief overview of kind of the experiences that I've had in the industry so far. And then, as Jack said, open it up for any questions that you have. So I, yes, have a long track record, as Jack said, but I'd say most of my, real world experience, really since post-grad has been for the past 6 years or so. So I graduated from college 6 years ago. It's hard to believe it's already been that long. I refuse to believe it. However, that's really been the bulk of my career. Most of that time I spent in kind of traditional wealth management. I did comprehensive financial planning specifically for ultra high net worth families at an established firm out here in the Boston area where I currently live. So I did that for over 5 years. And then alongside that, because I clearly don't like to sleep, my husband and I have our own business that more so focuses not on giving specific advice to people like I did in my day job, but more so on the education and coaching pieces of it. And so with our business, we are helping young adults, kind of people who are around our age and stage of life, right? People who are, older Gen Z, early millennials, 20s, 30s, right? Kind of now starting out life, figuring out their lives and their career. It's just a really fun stage, in my opinion. So helping people through all of that and giving them the information and resources that they need to go through this stage. So we are very online based. So we do group coaching, where our home base is on YouTube, like all kinds of stuff. So, and we've been running that. We just hit our 5-year anniversary on the 3rd of this month, which is also crazy that we've been doing this for this long. So, like I said, a lot of experiences in the traditional wealth advising space, but also concurrently with the education side of the house and the coaching side of the house as well. So that's been a little bit of my experience in terms of certifications, background, if you have any questions around those. In addition to having my CFP, I'm actually a CFP board ambassador. That's how much I love the certification. So I'm one of the insiders on the CFP board. I also have my CPA. I'm a personal financial specialist, which is kind of like a sub-designation of the CPA. And I have my master's in financial planning and chartered special needs consultant as well through the American College. So any questions about designations and stuff, happy to answer about all the ridiculous alphabet soup out there. So that's a little bit about, like I said, my background and experiences. And so, like I said, with that, happy to answer any and all questions that you all have about any facet of that where I can be helpful.
Yeah. Again, congratulations on the 5-year anniversary from all of us here at WMA Club. So, all right. So we do have, I do know some of our members, they are a part of our student athletes. They could not make it here tonight, but they did want me to ask all these questions to you. So I got a long list. We have about, I think in this club, about maybe 30 student athletes in this club. So they're doing a lot of stuff right now. So again, I told them focus on that, then come here because we don't want you to mess with that. So obviously, long list. Hopefully we're gonna get through all these. Hopefully get some time for you guys to ask some questions. So the first one, so could you share your journey to becoming a CFP and what inspired you to pursue this career path?
Yes. So journey to CFP. I guess let me start with my light bulb moment or origin story, so I like to call it, since that's wrapped into the question. So I realized I wanted to do financial planning somewhere between my freshman and sophomore years of college. So for context, I come from an immigrant household where we did not talk about money at all. Money was not a topic of conversation growing up. I consider myself a pretty smart kid. I skipped a couple of grades, all that fun stuff. And I'm like, I know so much. Yet when I did the FAFSA for the first time, going to college, filling out as a senior, trying to get to college, filling out the FAFSA, I'm looking at this form and I'm like, I have no idea what any of this is saying. What do all these terms mean? Like, I realized how absolutely clueless I was about money. And so that's really when I started getting the wheels turning around, okay, I need to teach myself about money. And I just really fell in love with the whole thing. In true Gen Z fashion, I kind of just went down a Google rabbit hole, like learning about money. And somehow in that rabbit hole, I found out about the field of financial planning. And I was like, there's a whole career where I can help people with money. Like, where do I sign? So like I said, I'm kind of learning about this, now kind of through my first year of college, discovering that this was even an option for me. And I was a business major at that time. I knew I wanted to do business, but I didn't know exactly what. But once I found financial planning, like I said, toward the end of my freshman year or so, I was pretty much sold. So that was kind of what I'd say my light bulb moment was, what piqued my initial interest in getting into the field. And so from there, I started learning, learned about the CFP, since that was, from my research, kind of the gold star certification in the industry. And I still believe so to this day, clearly. And so I knew once I graduated, that was the path that I wanted to be on. So of course, because I went to a school that didn't have a CFP board registered program, there are certain specific programs you need to take in order to become a CFP, not just, any random program. That's why I ended up going to do my master's in financial planning so that I could get the education necessary to sit for the CFP exam and ultimately get the credential. So that was the path I decided to take once I graduated from undergrad, did the exam, failed it the first time. I could talk to you about that too. It was a struggle, but, I knew it was something that was going to be really important and really meaningful in furthering, my career, since I knew financial planning was what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you approach creating a personalized financial plan for your clients, and what factors do you take into consideration to ensure its effectiveness?
Yes, that's a really, really great question. And so from my experience, one of the great things too about the firm in which I worked previously is that I always worked in a team. So I was never by myself, kind of creating everything from scratch as my own person, right? Especially dealing with ultra high net worth. I was usually working with, I always had a senior advisor with me, and, especially, when I first started, right? Who was here kind of supporting. So I would say the process we kind of took, especially keeping in mind that this is ultra high net worth clients. And usually at that level, we're not just dealing with one person or even one couple or even one family. We are dealing with the nuclear family, all the extended branches. When you're talking about a client, you get sometimes talking about 8, 9, 10 people in one client family, right? And so just as important as it is to cover all, of course, the basic tenets of making sure that somebody is secure, from, making sure you're catching if a client is overspending, monitoring their investment portfolio, making sure they have the appropriate insurance, estate planning, which it gets really complicated at that level, by the way. Learn some really complicated estate planning stuff doing that kind of work. But aside from doing all of those things for clients, we kind of usually start when we bring on a new client with the areas that need to be addressed the most critically is usually how we start. Anyway, if we see huge gaps. But outside of that, it's equally as important to manage everybody's family dynamics. Who doesn't speak to who and who doesn't like what, and issues with the sister-in-law, all of that is just as much a factor in the planning process as is knowing the nuts and bolts, all the technicalities of putting together a plan for the client. So it's managing everybody's personal, money mindsets, money psychology, also family dynamics layered on top of that, in addition to the planning, right? So it's never a dull moment, right? Sometimes the recommendation that you want to give sometimes isn't the right recommendation for them. It could be the math answer, right? But you also have to know when to adjust that and when to shift, knowing the unique circumstances that are going on within each client family. So that's what I would say is usually we try to approach it by, okay, let's plug the biggest gaps first, and then we can start, piece by piece, addressing all the different, other aspects of the family finances, while again, layering on top all of those dynamics as well, and learning how to be an effective planner where you don't necessarily feel anyone feels left out in the family relationship as well. So it's a lot of that stuff going on. I usually joke that my job is I craft carefully worded emails all day. That's what I joke that my job was. So yeah.
Yeah. So in your experience, what are the most common misconceptions about personal finance and wealth management that people have?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about the field is that I feel like this is changing slowly but surely, but that many people are still more so focused on the investment side of the house, where that's only one component of the picture, right? It's one of many different components. And so it's not enough to just be very investment savvy. You also have to know, A, how that affects all the other areas of somebody's financial life. And B, you also have to be competent in all the other areas as well, right? And so I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions still, I think, that exists in the industry, is that there's too much of a heavy focus on investing and trying to get very complicated and fancy with that, and not enough focus on all the other areas that encompass wealth management. Right? It's the estate planning, it's the helping them give charitably, it's all of the things, it's helping them send their kid to college, right? It's even some things, honestly, I did a lot of things in my job that didn't have to do with money at all, right? It's like, I don't know, helping them figure out how to buy a private plane. I don't know, whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that you never even think that you would do as a planner. So just having an open mind and not kind of being narrowly focused. I'd say that's one of the biggest misconceptions. And that also that it's only for the wealthy. Yes, my particular role was serving the ultra high net worth, but as I mentioned, in other ways, I found ways to also help people who came from, middle class, lower class, socioeconomic backgrounds as well. And so really kind of breaking that stigma still that I feel like exists, that financial planning or wealth management or financial planning specifically is only for the wealthy. So really having an open mind and being creative about how to serve various groups of people.
Yeah. So with the ever-changing landscape of the financial markets, how do you stay up to date with the latest trends and strategies for your clients?
There's lots of different ways, honestly, because again, it's one of those industries where you can't afford to get left behind, right? Legislation changes so often, rules change so often, so many different changes that happen, new developments, new trends. So here are some of the ways that I stay up to date. One is that I am, just as a member of all these different organizations that are related to like my certification. So like the personal financial specialist group of like CPAs, like the CFP forums. I'm also a member of the FPA, the Financial Planning Association. My local chapter, these all have like forums and boards where like people will post questions when they run into client issues, or, hey, I'm seeing this, or, here's what's going on. It's kind of like the Reddit of CFPs. I don't know, like it's just places where people go and just post like what's going on. And so I really do like to scan those boards, from time to time, or I get sometimes daily email digests of like what's going on the different boards or whatever. So I can kind of see like what conversations people are having in real time, what are trends. I'm very well connected also on LinkedIn with a lot of trailblazers in the field. So whenever they're posting thought leadership or whenever they're posting things, I'm seeing it. I'm listening to, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Kitsis podcast and the Kitsis universe. Things like that, you just get plugged into so that you're aware when things are happening. And then also you might also subscribe to certain industry publications or industry magazines that also kind of, report, you see the headlines when certain big things, right? Certain big things happen. And also don't sleep on the informal ways. Like I said, I'm a YouTuber personally. And so that's also one of my favorite ways to consume content, and where I see certain trends popping up is like people are, whether or not they know what they're talking about, they're making videos about it, right? And so that's a way that, okay, this is kind of what's going through the ether, also through like social media, YouTube, like those channels as well. So many different ways you can kind of keep an ear to the ground as to what's going on. Also just networking with people, right? As you go to conferences or go to different, forums, so many ways that you can just hear through the grapevine and many different channels for keeping up with stuff.
Yeah. So with the rise of technology, and obviously I know what I'm about to say, I think most people are not going to raise their hands. With the rise of OpenAI and ChatGPT, how has that impacted the wealth management industry, and what tools or platforms do you find the most useful in your practice?
Yes. So I will say, so with my like traditional wealth management job, I did leave that toward the end of 2022, like November, right when ChatGPT came out, basically. So I never got to use it in that capacity, but I will tell you, I use it all the time in my current capacity, more on like the education coaching side, and certainly for like social media content, which is also a trend that I feel like is, up and coming in the industry. More advisors, more planners, more educators are waking up to the fact that like social media is no longer a nice to have, like a good online presence is not something that's a nice to have. So more people are pouring resources into that arena, the content creation arena, and resources like ChatGPT and other AI powered tools are making it easier to and more efficient to do that. So I would say that's definitely been a help. But I've also been playing around with like ChatGPT in terms of like what's it going to tell me for like how to manage money. I've been really testing it a lot. And it can be really helpful on certain fronts. It's never going to replace an actual person. It never will. I haven't figured out a way for it to do that just yet. Or to give prescriptive advice. And it's also pretty good at telling you after every single response, at least for me, this is just information, like consult an actual professional. Like I find that it's pretty good at putting in those like guardrails. But yeah, it can be helpful in terms of just like learning certain things. Maybe there's just like a quick term that you're unfamiliar with that maybe you can just get a sense of at least what it might be about, right? Through something like that. Letting it find resources, articles for you around certain topics that you might want to learn more about. Things of that nature can help with some of the mathier types of things that you might need to do, like running retirement projections or whatever, right? Like that kind of stuff I can easily see a use case for. But outside of that, I think there's still a long ways to go before it, becomes this behemoth that I think a lot of people are scared of in the industry or kind of hesitant to adopt. So, yeah.
So in your book, Financial Freedom Blueprint, you discuss several strategies for achieving financial independence. Could you highlight a few of those strategies for, our members today?
Okay, so I think that might be like a little bit of a typo. It's not a book, but I do have like a core webinar program that's entitled Financial Freedom. Yeah, Financial Freedom Formula, actually.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So, but the core tenets that I talk about in that webinar are basically a reflection of a mix of course, professional knowledge, but also my personal experience with building wealth myself. One of the things that we're very transparent, my husband and I, about, we run the company together, is about our own wealth building experience, which I think is super important to share. Like I just don't want to ever seem like I'm this person from on high telling you what to do with your money, and you're not knowing if I'm even, taking my own medicine and taking my own advice. And so every quarter we share our net worth update on YouTube. All the numbers, like if you want to know how much I'm worth, go look at our last one, right? And so, for example, like those kinds of things, we share not just the numbers, but this is really going like the why, as how we got there, how it is that we ended up going from a super negative six-figure net worth to a positive six-figure net worth in just a couple of short years, right? It's like, okay, what was the journey? What are the core tenets of wealth building that I can teach? And so it's everything from, I have my custom, my proprietary framework, I guess, that I kind of walk people through. So it's everything from money mindset to understanding cash flow, securing that foundation, protection, insurance, et cetera, to credit, to investing, and even just making smart decisions. And like I said, I'm mostly applying this to, a young adult market, making smart decisions with all the adulting things, like when you're buying your first house, when you're planning your wedding, when you're thinking about going to grad school. These are all moments, believe it or not, that can really alter the course of your wealth building trajectory. So how do we do these things successfully? So those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about in that webinar. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you help clients identify and manage the various risks associated with their financial planning, such as market volatility or inflation?
Yeah, so let me answer this from kind of two perspectives. So like from the traditional wealth management, when I'm talking to, ultra high net worth clients, how do I help them manage risk? I mean, there's definitely different ways, right? And I will also say the caveat that most of my job when it came to financial planning, I basically did everything except for the portfolio management. So we had dedicated staff that ran the trades, came up with the asset allocation, did all that stuff, the rebalancing. They did all that fun stuff. I basically did everything else. So we worked as a team. So I would say from the investment side, I wasn't as hands-on with that. But from a protection standpoint in general, like the different things that we would do from a protection standpoint, and from, looking at inflation, all kinds of things. And yes, we position the investment portfolio appropriately, but other steps we can take outside of the investment portfolio are things like just making sure that we have an extra careful eye on cash flow, because naturally people are spending more money. We want to make sure those projections that we're running, Monte Carlos, all that great, fun, fancy stuff, right? That the numbers are still working, that we're not letting them get too ahead of kind of the projections and making sure that's not 3 years have gone by and these numbers look drastically different, right? How can we course correct? What things can we do? What things can we tweak? Or even if it's just as simple as letting you know, hey, these are the trends we're seeing and you can make your own decisions, right? We're all adults here. Sometimes they know the solutions they need to make within themselves, right? And so those are the kinds of the conversations that we have, especially in these environments. Most of our clients are pretty good about not like freaking out, like when the economy is doing its thing or the markets are doing their thing. Most of them were pretty good about kind of just, keeping on according to plan. But sometimes it's also a lot of reassurance that yes, the world is not going to spontaneously combust tomorrow. Like it'll be okay. Like we just got to work through certain things. So that's what I would say to that.
Yeah. Oh boy, wait, almost lost my list here.
That's all right.
That's it.
Take your time. But yeah, inflation's scaring a lot of people, though. I will say that. At all levels of the socioeconomic ladder, it's scaring a lot of people.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the role of social responsibility investing in today's market? And how do you incorporate that into your clients' financial plans as well? Because I know we did talk about it, I think, who remembers from last week? I know we brought it up somewhere from last week. We did talk about this. We did talk about social responsible investing. And I remember the comment that he made. He's like, oh, well, if you ask that question, they're probably gonna give it like, oh, it's so regulated. Like you're not gonna really get an answer at anyone about it. So, he was like, he was so like chill about it. Like, and I knew the speaker for like 2 years now. So I knew him really well. So I brought him in, but how does social responsibility, how does that play a factor in today's markets?
Yeah, I find that really interesting because the firm that I worked at, previously, we had literally dedicated staff for impact investing. And they added a third person to the team right before I left as well. So we had 3 literal people whose job was to, create impact portfolios for clients and do that kind of due diligence and research. And it's also an area that I have, personal interest in. So that's kind of shocking to me. I feel like, I don't know why everybody isn't incorporating, like SRI to some degree, because it's not even just about us. It's like clients are asking for this. It's not a trend or a fad that's going to go away. People genuinely have things that they care about and they want to be able to do that through investing, right? And so that's what I would say. The portfolios, there's the age-old question of, how do these investments perform relative to regular, right, traditional investing, when for the past how many ever years we've had this practice, they consistently outperformed. Their portfolios outperformed. So it was just really interesting to kind of like just see the data in front of you. And so that's usually what we tell people, just normalizing the fact that like SRI or impact investing, whatever terminology you want to use, it's just investing. Like it's really not that far-fetched. It's just investing. You're just layering on, right? An additional component or two in terms of, the types of companies that you choose to invest in or not, right? And so that's, I think once you normalize that conversation, people realize it's not as, quote unquote, really that different or special as people think it is, right? I think that really helps to put a lot of fears at bay and really help people to really truly understand what the objective is. The objective is still to make money at the end of the day, right? That is still the paramount objective. However, there are ways to also achieve both goals. And so I think irrespective of, the economic climate, I think it's just important to normalize that fact with people. And once you get through that barrier, it really becomes a simpler conversation. Even for people who are not considered ultra high net worth, like there are things that the regular investor, you and I can do, even things in your 401k that you can implement, right? That you can move to be more, socially responsible if that's an intention of yours. So points, there's so many ways to do it, and then we shouldn't be scared of it. That's kind of the all-in-one answer there.
Yeah. So could you share some insights on how to effectively plan for retirement, considering factors like life expectancies and the rise of costs of healthcare? So I know our members really don't want to think about retirement, but we did do, I believe, we did a workshop about it. And the one thing I told my members to do, that if there's one thing you want to take away from the presentation, start planning for retirement now while you're young. Don't wait till you're like 50 and you're like, oh, I gotta like do this. So
Absolutely. The time is now, okay? Even if you only got $5 to put aside them $5, okay? I promise you, you won't regret it. Future you will not regret that decision when you're looking back 20, 30, 40 years from now, right? Future you will thank you. That's always what I have to think about. I'm like, well, future Akeiva thank me for this. I'm like, yes, she will. Better to put more in now than try to struggle later. I'm sure you've all heard, know, or familiar with the concept of compound interest. So I don't think I need to beat that horse. But it really is true. The more time you give yourself, the easier it's going to be, right? And so I'd say start early. You know, when you're getting your first jobs out of college or whatever the route that you might take, do not neglect your retirement investing. Take advantage of those 401k matches. If you go to jobs that have them, if you're striking out on your own, don't neglect. Even more important that you don't neglect it, right? Make sure you're setting up those IRAs, whatever other accounts that you might have, and just get started, all right? Get started. The sooner, the better. It's less important about the dollar amount. It's just more important that you build the habit and get started. So that's one thing. The second thing, this is an interesting trend that I've seen, especially amongst our generation. And I'd venture to do a quick poll. You can tell me the results. You're in the room. How many of you think that Social Security is actually going to be around by the time we're ready to claim it?
all right, everyone raise your hand about that. Oh my God, wow, there's only like 5 people in the room only raised their hands. Wow.
Okay, exactly my point. Yes, you're proving my exact point. Every time I have this conversation, especially with our generation, like we have no faith, right? We have zero faith that Social Security is going to be around for us by the time we are old and ready to take it, right? By the time we're in our 60s. So therefore, it's even more important, whether it's there or not. That's a debate that's up for debate. But whether it's there or not, that's even more of a reason why. It's every person for themselves. It's survival of the fittest out here, y'all. So we have to make sure we secure ourselves so that we have the most comfortable retirement possible. Another step that you can take, no matter how young or how old you are, here is a pro tip that I encourage people to do. Something to build into your annual routine, right? Yes, we're doing taxes, we're checking our credit scores, we're doing all these things. Here's one more thing to add to your list of things to do every year. Check your Social Security Administration statement, okay? SSA.gov, create that account. Every year, they're gonna have a listing of what you made that year, right? Every year when you do your taxes, the IRS is gonna report to the Social Security Administration how much you made, right? Even if you don't think you're gonna be around to claim it, let's at least make sure they have the right numbers in case it is around, right? What you're gonna claim it later on is based on what you're making today. You're not going to remember 30 years from now what you made in 2023, right? So make a habit of every year going in, checking those numbers, making sure they're correct, making sure that all your demographic data is correct. I literally know a person who their birth date is off by 1 day, and they're glad they caught that early as opposed to when it's time to go claim and it's holding up, their benefits and things like that. So make a habit of, create that account, like I said, and go in every year to make sure your earnings record is up to date. So that's something that anybody can do at any age. Once you have some earned income, once you file taxes, that's something that you should check every year.
Yeah. So I know probably we all in life make mistakes, but with financial mistakes, what are some common financial mistakes you've seen people make, and how can we, the young generation, avoid those mistakes?
Yes. Okay. Now, one thing I will say too is mistakes are also relative. So what might be a mistake for me may not be a mistake for you, right? So let's start there. Some people might say, for example, taking out student loans. I came out of school with a ton of student loan debt, and guess what? I don't regret it, right? To me, that was not a mistake, right? But for somebody else, that might be a mistake. But some very common traps, I would say, for lack of a better word, that I see, a lot of us falling into is buying the most expensive car right when we graduate and having these ridiculous car notes with ridiculous interest rates, especially in this interest rate environment where it's even higher, right? So that's one thing I see all the time is the people graduate, the first thing they want to do is buy a car. I don't know why. A new car, financing it at 15% interest rate, crazy stuff. So let's not do that. All right. I see that a lot. Even with my own friend circle, let's not do that. I will even say when I bought my first car, I would consider my biggest money mistake to date was the way that I handled the purchase. Now, I still do have the car 6 years later. Yay, great, it's running fine. But also that interest rate was like 8%, and that wasn't cute. So I didn't shop around. I didn't get multiple quotes. Like, there were just so many mistakes that I made, naivety of youth. So, I would say just be smart about those kinds of things. Many people, depending on your situation, some of you may be in the situation, maybe people may not be, where you're also looking to maybe get married, right? Like soon after graduating, some may be in this boat, a lot of us may not, but keeping those things in mind as well. Weddings are expensive. My wedding was expensive, and we paid for the whole thing. Do I regret it? Again, no, we were actually prepared for that. But it can be a pitfall for people too. And then one of the biggest pitfalls I will say, and I'll stop here, is not like considering all your options after graduation, or like taking a salary or taking a job just because, it's probably more money than we've ever seen in our lives. Let's be honest, at this stage, right? When you're getting your first job, more money than you're making, but you want to make sure that what you're making is actually sustainable, especially when you're looking at decisions like like you're living on your own potentially for the first time. Maybe some of you are even moving, right, across state lines or international lines, even for a job. You want to make sure you run those numbers before you say yes. Because a lot of people, they just kind of jump at the first thing that sounds good. Oh, well, 70 sounds like a good number, right? I should be able to live on that, but they haven't actually done the work of going through and making sure that it's sustainable, right? And so draft of a good post-grad budget, right? And make sure that that salary, that compensation is actually going to be sustainable for you.
Yeah. So the next question I have on this list here is that as a financial planner, how do you approach the topic of estate planning with your clients? And what are some key elements that they should consider?
Yes. So I approach that conversation a little bit differently depending on socioeconomic status, because there are some nuances, right? Whereas for my ultra high net worth clients, like I said, I was getting into some real deep, complex stuff where we're doing like all the complicated trusts, the reverse mortgages, all kinds of strategies that we had going on up in there. Okay. Whereas, that level of wealth necessitates that level of complexity. Whereas somebody like you and me, right? It's the basic 4 documents for most people. It's okay. Do you have your will, your healthcare proxy, your power of attorney, maybe a revocable trust, right? Those kinds of things where it's a much more simplified version where you can still get, the most protection when it comes to estate planning and get a lot of your objectives achieved with, just those core documents instead of all the fanciness and complexities that might exist at the upper eons of wealth, because there's just a lot more going on logistically and financially. So that's how I really approach it, as I usually start with those core documents. Do you have those in place, right? Are they up to date? Are they accurate? That is really where most of the planning lies. Lower on the spectrum, but like I said, higher in the spectrum, then we're even going deeper, irrevocable trusts, the whole 9. So yes, that is in short. Let me know if there's any more detailed questions on that, but in short, that's
so segueing back to student loans, obviously, what strategies do you suggest for managing and reducing debt, especially those with high interest credit card debts or student loans?
Yes, actually, my most popular video on YouTube ever is all about how to pay down student loans. I'll send you the link later on if that's helpful. And I can talk about student loans morning, noon, and night. Like, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So please stop me if I go too long. I can. But student loans are a thing. Like I said, I graduated with about $80,000 of student loan debt. My spouse also graduated with about 80-something thousand. Like I said, we got married and it was 165 deep, right? So we're still digging out of that, right? Of course, fingers crossed, we'll see what the Supreme Court does in a couple of months. But barring that, right, like we're still trying to dig out of it ourselves. And so I think the most important thing to do is, and a really underrated, it's like, it sounds so simple, but it's very underrated, is making sure that we're crystal clear on exactly what debt we have, like creating that debt inventory. All right, line it up. This loan, this is how much I owe. This is the interest rate. This is who I owe it to. This is my minimum payment. Go through every single debt you have and create that inventory. so that you know what you're working with and you can create a plan. I feel like most of the fog that exists and what weighs us down a lot of the time, especially when it comes to high amounts of debt, is that we don't have true clarity on like what's actually going on and what's the status of everything. So I'd say take some time and go do that debt inventory. It's an easy process, but it can be hard emotionally to face those numbers. I will tell you, I will be upfront in saying that it's a really hard emotional process to go through, but it's a really important step. You can't plan for what you don't know. So you got to know what's going on before you can create a plan for it. And then from there, it really is up to you, the order in which you choose to attack your debt. Some people are very much debt averse. They want to get out of debt as quickly as possible. Every spare penny they're putting toward debt. There are pros and cons to that, especially when you're trying to balance paying off debt with like actually saving, right? And actually like investing other things, right? There's always going to be a little bit of a balance, a little bit of tug of war between those three objectives. However, you kind of got to do what works best for you. And there are tools. One of my favorite tools to use ever is a debt reduction spreadsheet by Vertex 42. That is like, my life revolves around that spreadsheet. I kid you not. Because also tools like that actually let you know, okay, if you stick to this plan, if you pay this amount every month, here's when you'll be out of debt, right? And I think that also removes a big cloud over our head when it comes to, you know, debt payoff. It's not easy. You feel like you're kind of throwing money into this black hole and never seeing the end of it. And so tools like that can be really, really helpful in providing clarity and helping you devise a plan for paying it down.
Yeah. So in times of economic uncertainty, how do you advise clients to maintain the financial stability and adapt their plans to changing circumstances? For example, like with COVID-19 that just happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because I feel like we're more so trying to get people to stay the course. We're not really making huge changes, right? We really aren't making huge changes in the financial plan, right? In response to, for example, COVID, right? So I think honestly, most of the work is reassuring people and again, helping them stick to the plan instead of changing the plan. Because often, like I said, the plans that we're doing, we're looking long-term, we're looking strategic. We're not usually making huge shifts. Yeah, there may be one or two tactical shifts that we might make. You know, maybe we'll switch your portfolio from this to this, or, you know, whatever in response to certain economic climates or things like that. But by and large, we are not making huge like overhauls in any given area of the plan, right? We only do big shifts if big shifts happen when it comes to like legislation. Now, something's allowed now that we couldn't do before, something's not allowed now, or something's going away, or exemptions are going down, right? Those are the things that necessitate really big planning moves. But other than that, we really are largely sticking to the core plan that we have. And that, like I said, reassuring clients and helping them stick to that.
Yeah. So how do you balance short-term and long-term financial goals when creating a comprehensive financial plan for your clients?
Yeah, it's always a balancing act, right? It is always a balancing act, regardless of socioeconomic status. I'll say for the wealthy as much as it is for, you know, you and I. So there's always going to be that push and pull of short-term things or things that just come up, right? Or goals that you didn't have a year ago that now you have, right? This one wants to all of a sudden open a business, right? Like that happens all the time, like in our work. It's like, okay, we were going to invest your trust money this way, but now you need it to go do this thing. Or now you decided it was time for you to buy a house. So now we've got to sell these things, right? Or so we basically just try to adapt as best we can as advisors. I would say as advisors, we always tell clients and implore them, if you're thinking about something, even if you're not sure yet, let us know, right? The more time we can have to plan for these things, the better. So sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes they really do create some fire drills for us. Literally clients, especially the younger ones, will be like, oh, I'm putting in an offer on a house or closing's tomorrow. Can you wire money? Like, that's not how that works. We actually have to sell the thing. That takes like 2 days to then get you the money, right? You know, like they don't really understand sometimes the logistics of it. So that's the one thing, like we say, is just keep us in the loop, right? We can adapt. We can shift the plan. We can make moves. You know, if this is something that's really important to you, at the end of the day, it's your money. You know, we're never going to tell you flat out no. We might say, hey, this may not be the best idea, but sometimes, like I said, by the time it gets to that point, what's done is done. Like, what are we going to tell you, right? Like, you're about to go to closing. Like, what are we going to tell you? Don't buy the house. So, we just adapt, as things happen, and do the best we can and making sure that we're still being, good stewards of the money that you've given us. And giving the best recommendations that we can with the tools that we have. So it's basically just constant adaptation, and that's okay, right? In our personal lives, things happen, emergencies happen, unforeseen events happen that we have to plan for, and we shift and adjust. So it's kind of the same way.
Yeah. So speaking about a big topic that I believe, funny enough, I think one of our members who actually is a member of this club and actually a member of our student management investment fund club, where we actually are investing $100,000 into the stock market that our school of business actually gave us. How do you, what are some, oh, I'm sorry, not that question. Can you discuss the importance of diversification in an investment portfolio and share some tips about how to achieve a well-diversified portfolio?
Yeah, fun thing. I was actually having this conversation with someone earlier today, so it's fresh in my head. Diversification, very, very important. Of course, you probably all heard the phrasing. You don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. Same is true with investments, right? We don't want where if something's going on over here that our whole portfolio is down or our whole portfolio is just subject to, one particular industry or another. So that's why we want to spread things out across different industries. And like I tell people all the time, that doesn't also mean, or doesn't always mean having to have like your asset allocation, like all over the place, where you must have exposure to everything or all the asset classes, right? You can have a lot of diversification even within the same asset class, right? Let's take stocks, for example. You don't just want to have all the big tech stocks, right? You want to have small companies, large companies, mid-sized companies, value, growth, right? International, domestic, emerging markets. Like you want to have it all, different industries, right? You want to have healthcare stocks and pharmaceuticals and consumer staples, right? You want to have basically a wide range, and that's how you achieve, diversification, even when you're just looking at one singular asset class. So many different ways, again, that you can do that. But it's, again, very important so that, one company fails, you have several hundred others or, other holdings that can help to, weather those things and have, some backing there. So that's what I would say with that, is to kind of have an open mind when it comes to diversification. And also, of course, you all know about the mutual funds and other pooled funds of the world that you can help to achieve further diversification and that stuff too. So yeah, that's what I'd say to that.
Yeah. So, oh man, this question. Yeah, this person has a really good question. And I know we had this, I think it was one person that spoke it last week. They asked this question and it was really, really like a interesting topic. So what are your thoughts on the increasing popularity of cryptocurrencies and other alternative investments, and how should investors approach these opportunities? Because we did bring in someone, I believe, from like New York Life, I think last week. And he told us that he never has any of his clients invest in like cryptocurrencies at all, because, he, in his opinion, he thinks that cryptocurrency is not really an asset. It's just, it's just something that's like not even existing. But
Well, that's certainly a perspective. Yeah, that's certainly a perspective. I would say cautious optimism is probably the best words I would use to describe it. It's inevitable. If you're a financial advisor, honestly, these days that just wants nothing to do with crypto, you don't want to hear it, you don't want to talk to clients about it, then you're behind the 8 ball and you're potentially losing a client, because they're doing it whether you like it or not. They're going to do it behind your back if you don't want to talk about it. So better that you are on the ride with them than they just go and do their thing and kind of make a mess, right? And so I'd say that more and more financial planners, financial advisors, wealth managers are waking up to the fact that I think crypto is here to stay, at least in some capacity, right? Crypto as a whole, I don't think is a fad, right? Like individual coins might be, but the entire asset class is definitely not. And so what I've seen as kind of best practice is that many advisors are, allowing small allocations to crypto, like 5% or somewhere in that range, right, for client portfolios, and finding, helping source ways to reduce risk and to provide options to clients to do it in a responsible way, right? So I'm thinking about even the big brokerages that many of our wealth management firms use, right? The Fidelities, the Schwabs of the world, they're all starting to come out with their own kind of crypto trading competencies and abilities, so that financial planners, wealth advisors, wealth managers can help their clients and really keep it in-house, right? Gone are the days where it's like, okay, well, you have to go open your Coinbase account and just like, let me know when it's done, right? Like now we're even having capabilities where we can have oversight over, you know what I'm saying, the trading that's happening in the crypto space. A lot of brokers are opening up that option for managed accounts. So it's a really interesting trend to see. However, I think it's one that's kind of here to stay. So cautious optimism, small allocations, but not like a hard no, right? You just want to do your due diligence. We definitely no meme coins or anything like that. Just like we don't do meme stocks, we don't do meme coins either.
Yeah, like Dogecoin and all the other memes.
Right.
This was actually pretty interesting. Good question here. For those who are self-employed or own a small business, what specific financial planning considerations should they keep in mind?
Yeah, so if you are self-employed, so you're a solopreneur, right? One of the biggest things, putting on my CPA hats, is making sure that you've got all your records together, okay? Making sure that you keep on top of your bookkeeping, that you know what's coming in, that you know what's going out, you're staying compliant on taxes, right? Too many people wait until today, literally, to put together finishing all their bookkeeping, right? So they can hit send on their tax return before midnight, right? Like it's too many of us are doing this. It's really good practice to make sure you're keeping up with those things throughout the year, so you're not pulling your hair out come tax time. And especially if you're working with tax professionals doing your taxes for you, don't stress them out either, okay? All it is, everybody will be pulling their hair out. Make their lives easier by having clean records, making sure you're keeping up with those things. If you're paying vendors, making sure you're getting W-9s from your vendors, because, you got to issue, the 1099s at the beginning of the year. Like it's those small things, compliance things that are really important for business owners to understand. And I would also say, I reiterate something I said earlier, which is also don't neglect your own retirement. When you are a business owner or solopreneur, it's something to still pay attention to. Even if you're not making a ton of money, just whatever you can do to get that started as well. So obviously those are like the biggest things that I see all the time that I would encourage you to do.
Funny enough, today actually says I'm actually an accounting major myself, and actually it's tax day. So funny enough, as I was talking about tax planning, and we're like, wow, I'm like, what the heck?
Exactly. That's why I was like, literally today, put it together. Literally today. Let's not do that.
So can you share some strategies for building an emergency fund, and how should individuals aim to have in their emergency savings?
Yes. So an emergency fund is one of those super boring goals that is essential for everybody to have. I know it's not the sexiest thing in the world to do or talk about, but there are ways that we can make saving just a little bit less painful. So let me share some of those tips. One thing that I encourage people to do if they can is using large sums of money that you might come into, maybe like your unplanned sums of money. So think things like tax refunds, bonuses, right? Stimulus checks in the COVID era, right? Like those kind of like unplanned sums of money that we can kind of just make a good decision with one time, right? And kind of just turbocharge that goal a little bit faster. That's one tip. The second is just making saving a habit, right? Especially with a big goal like an emergency fund, it's a big goal. It's not going to be something that a lot of us do within just a couple of months or overnight, right? We're talking a lot of money here, especially when you're looking to put 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses into an account, right? Not an overnight goal, a lot of money for a lot of us. And so take your time with it, but also don't neglect it, right? Use automation to your advantage. Again, it's one of those things, the more the machine can do for us in this scenario, the better. The less you have to do, the better. When you're saving up, putting that money in a separate account, even better if it's an account that's separate from your everyday check-in, so that when you log into your app, you're not seeing it right next to each other. You're tempted to do a little, you put it in and then 2 days later, you're transferring it back out, right? We don't want to do that either. So separate accounts, automation, turbocharging with lump sums of money that you might get. And also remembering your why. Why are you saving this money up, right? It's not just because somebody told you had to. It's the freedom. It's a true freedom. I literally have nicknaming your account. That's like a little underrated pro tip. You know how they let you like put like these cute little names on your account now? So you log in, you don't just see account X, whatever. It's like the actual name. So I think I have my name Financial Freedom Fund, which is what it represents to me, right? I know that if something happens to my health, if something happens to my income, I can go on living my life for 6 months and don't have to change a thing, right? I don't have to go breaking my lease or running home to parents or whatever the alternative is, right? That is what makes me motivated to save that money, because I don't want to ever have to put anybody in that position, right? Or myself in that position. So remember your why: automation, lump sums of money, separate accounts, nicknames. That's my advice.
Yeah. So what role does behavioral finance play in personal financial planning, and how do you address the biases or emotional decision-making with your clients?
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's absolutely critical. And I will say that I have even worked in situations where it's not even just behavioral finance. I've literally worked with clients who have like quite literal mental diagnoses or actual situations that need to be addressed by professionals. And that has such a huge impact in the way that we work with them as financial planners, right? Like I said, there's a lot of things I've done, especially in the wealth management arena, sitting on calls with clients' therapists from time to time. Like, like sometimes things like that happen. But it's essential in making sure that you're able to, respond appropriately to a client. You're not stepping on any of their triggers. You know what I'm saying? Like there are just certain things where sometimes it goes as far as that. But for people who aren't necessarily, that on that end of the spectrum, right? Like there's still, everybody has their own biases, everybody has their own propensity to risk. And a big thing is also understanding your own money mindset and how that impacts the recommendations that you're giving to other people. We all have our biases based on our upbringing, our childhood, our culture, all of these things that play into the way that we deal with money. And we don't want to always let that overshadow the advice and the recommendations that we're giving to others as professionals. And so I think it's also managing your own, identifying and managing your own, while also helping your clients identify and manage their own, money habits, money attitudes that may not be serving them well in the management of their finances. For example, I've worked with clients who spend a lot of money, not because it's for them, right? But they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're trying to keep up appearances, right? These little things that they're rooted somewhere, right? And we have to work with them and making sure that we are, giving sound advice while also not getting them so upset that they don't ever want to speak to us ever again. Like it's always this like balancing act, right? Of reining certain habits in, while also again treating people with empathy and with kindness, and just making sure that we're making progress. So it's one of those skills that you can't learn in the textbook. It's just one of those things that you have to do by practice and learn by practice. So that's what I'd say to that. But it's huge, 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 huge. I like to tell people, one of my favorite quotes is, I can talk to you about budgeting till you're blue in the face, but if we don't first address the why, the money mindset stuff, it makes no sense, right? So huge. That's always where I start. Even in my practice now, where I'm doing more education and coaching, that's always where I start with clients. So.
Ooh, man, we made it through that entire list now. Our student athletes came with a lot of great questions. I can tell you that. All right, so we got the final 10 minutes. I know I was hoping for 15, but we got 10 at least. For you guys to ask any questions you guys want. She's here now. Please, guys, don't be afraid to ask. If you can't, then please come up here and ask me. You can write it down for me. I have no problem asking on your behalf, but please, I'd rather you guys ask your questions to her. But anyone wants to before I ask a question?
Nothing's off limits. Open book. Ask away.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll ask the first one. So I usually ask this question to all of our speakers that come in that are actually CFP certified, because even though coming from me, which I'm actually planning on taking my CPA exam in about a couple of years, I have always heard like the topic of maybe, for wealth management, to get your CFP, don't get it, get your CFA. But in your opinion, do you personally feel like a wealth manager, do you feel like, if students should go to get their CFA or CFP, or get both? Because I have heard from other speakers like, oh, take the CFP, get the CFA, get both. But like, what's your take on it?
I think it depends on which area you're most interested in. If you think that you're going to be mostly focused on the investment side of the house, so that will be a primary function in your role, like how I mentioned, how I basically did everything but investments, right? I was never interested in doing the CFA. That's usually people who are more so focused on the investment side, whereas the CFP is mostly for people who want to really be strong in comprehensive planning, right? All the other things. outside of just the investing. So that's how I would kind of break it down. If you don't foresee a long-term career, the CFA is a serious commitment. As you probably know, it's a multi-level, it's a years-long process to become a CFA, right? It's like 3 years or something like that at minimum. So it's a very, very long process, a very, very hard exam from what I've heard from my friends who have it, right? The CFP isn't a cakewalk either, but it's at least a little bit of a shorter process, right? And so I would say to weigh those two things as to what do you foresee your long-term career options being? If you are into the investment side of the house, by all means, CFA. But if you are just looking to do comprehensive planning, you aren't necessarily putting a stake in the ground or having a specific or overwhelming focus on investing, CFP is going to be the better thing. And I also know a lot of people who do both. So it really depends on what you'd like to do, right? There's no rule that says you can't get both. But if you're trying to prioritize, that's how I would think about it.
All right, so I think one person came up here. They want me to ask the question. I think Sabrina wanted me to ask, can you share any personal habits or routines that have contributed to your success as a financial planner and help you maintain a healthy work-life balance?
Ooh, that is a great question. The question really is, have I maintained a healthy work-life balance? But let me tell you what I've done that definitely makes me try. I prioritize sleep. That's first and foremost, mostly because I don't do caffeine. And so I literally can't function without my sleep. So I am like, I don't care what's happening, I'm like, if nobody's dying, I am going to sleep. So I prioritize getting that time in because like I said, it makes me, without that, I'm groggy, I'm foggy, like I need to function. So that's the one big thing. It's very, very simple, but very, I think, underrated is prioritizing sleep. Even as a student, I prioritized my sleep. I didn't care if my paper was done, not done, I was going to sleep. I'd rather get up early, a little bit early, get it done in the morning rather than try to stay up late. But that's just me. And then just trying to also keep in mind that your job is not everything. This is a personal lesson that I had to learn as kind of like a high achieving, kind of like a gifted kid for quote unquote, it was kind of hard to like unwire myself from that and associate kind of like your self-worth with your career, but gotta be very intentional about keeping those two things separate. So it's making the time for your friends. It's making the time for your family, right? Keeping things, priorities where they belong. It's easier said than done sometimes, but I would say I've learned more and more, how to really prioritize that, especially in recent months. It's been a little bit easier. But yeah, that's what I would say.
So on another question that I think one of our members had, I think Kate was the one that asked me this. How do you recommend teaching financial literacy to younger generations, and what resources or methods do you find most effective?
Yeah, so when you say younger generations, I'd love if you would clarify. Do you mean like our generation, Gen Z, or like even younger? Like we're talking like kids?
Yeah, she would say both. Like if you want to like younger generation, maybe like Gen Z, like on two sides of the coin of that.
Okay, cool. It's like I say, I'm also, Gen Z too. I'm like first year Gen Z. I'm like, just made it. But it's like, so here's what I would say that I do, because I am, kind of the target as well. Like I said, I kind of go, like I said, really Gen Z. Most of us are really kind of emerging into adulthood at this point. So a lot of the conversations that I'm having, the financial literacy, quote unquote topics, okay, let me start with this. In either case, it's important to start with what's most interesting, I feel like, to people. And so at this stage with Gen Z, I'm mostly talking about, okay, like you're about to graduate, like, okay, you're getting your first job. What does that mean? What are all these benefits? Like what's getting on your own health insurance because you get kicked off at 26, fun times. Like all these different things that like you just need to know and prepare for, right? You're getting married, you want to buy a house, like how do you prepare yourself? How are you combining finances with a partner and you're moving in together, like what are the things, right? So sometimes it even is just approaching it from like that, this is what you're going through right now perspective, and what do you need to know in order to do this successfully? You're filing your first tax return potentially, right? Like it's all the real life or just in time education, as I like to call it. So with Gen Z, it's largely those kinds of things. In addition to, like I said, the money mindset work, which I think is very important at any stage, and especially at this stage. If I was talking to like a younger audience, say like Gen Alpha, right? I think that's what they're called these days. Like what I'm telling them about money, again, you want to make it relatable to them. So maybe I'm not necessarily teaching them, about taxes or something like that. They don't need to know that right now. What they need to know, right, is when they have their Roblox card and this is how much money's put on it, right? And you've used this much, like this is what's left. Like it's the basic concepts like that you can like tie real world examples to that I think really hits home with like the younger generations. Because let's be real, like that's what they're into right now. It's TikTok, it's like all these things. Like these younger kids are really into that. You really just try to make things as relatable as it can be at that age and at that stage and break it down. So I think as you go up, as you get older, you can, expand into more things as they start to experience more life. You get to have more fun with the examples and things that are relevant to them.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone have any last minute questions before I ask the final question? Does anyone? All right. I guess I'm asking the final question. All right. So it's usually a two-part that I usually ask to all of our speakers. The first part being is that if you had to go back to your past self back in college, what would be the one thing you want to tell your past self in college that you want to do differently? And then two, because I do know we have a couple of members in here that are, I think from when we got here, I think about 10 of you are probably freshmen. I think 8 of you are sophomores. I think I see in the room here, just by faces that I know. And they haven't really decided yet if they want to go down wealth management as a major or minor yet. But what advice would you give to those undergraduates yet who have not decided if they want to go down wealth management or not? That's the second part of the question.
All right, so let me start with part one. What would I tell myself back in college? I think it's kind of something I alluded to earlier. This is just personally for me. I don't know if anybody will resonate with this or not, but for me, it was learning how to, if I could have broke that chain a little bit earlier, separating my success in school or like getting good grades or my success in getting a job or the prestigious internship, if I could break all of that away from self-worth, I would be in a much healthier spot today. So that's what I would say is making that time to work on yourself, making that time to kind of just the way that I viewed myself at that stage of life. So I would say that's that for part one. And part two, I would say it's okay if you don't exactly know quite yet. Like I said, I started out as a business major. I think I concentrated in finance, and I ended up adding on accounting as a major afterward too. My point is any business major is fine for getting into wealth management. To be honest, you do not need to specify or niche down into financial planning or wealth management to have a career in that field. Like, yes, is it somewhat helpful? Sure, but any business background honestly will do. Honestly, any psychology background will do as well, because you see how much that plays in to the picture as well, right? You can always decide later if you want to go the CFP route or some other thing. You can then, go do your program like everybody else to get the right classes, right? To sit for it, whether it's doing a master's or a certificate program, which is the most popular route people take. It's like this 7-class certificate program. And most employers, if you already work there, will pay for it. So it's not a huge deal. That's what I would say. So don't be too stressed out about it. Any general background will do. But I would say in the meanwhile, if you find other wealth managers, financial planners, talk to them. We're a very loving community. I found when I was a student, I literally picked up the phone, called a couple people. They were more than happy to answer all my questions, right? So shadow people, volunteer experiences, internships, externships, whatever you can do to help make that decision easier for you, definitely do so.
Yeah, well, that was an amazing talk we had tonight, guys. Thank you so much, Akeiva, for coming and speak to us today. We really, really appreciate it. Again, members, please stay behind. We have a couple announcements to make, but again, thank you so much, Akeiva, for coming and speak to us today.
Of course, thank you for having me. And if you'd like to share my contact information with members of the club, please do so. More than happy to chat with anybody.
Remind me one more thing. I hope everyone connects with her on LinkedIn after this meeting. I always say every speaker I come to just connect with our speaker. You reminded me.
I'm very easy to find. My name is very SEO friendly. You can't miss me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming to speak to us tonight.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Turn it on. target.